to start with a poem. It really struck me when thinking about right effort today. Actually, the last few days, this came up. It's Mary Oliver's, one of her poems, which of course are, I think, pretty wonderful. And then the name of the poem is Heavy. And here it is. That time I thought I could not go any closer to grief without dying. I went closer and I did not die. Surely God had his hand in this, as well as friends. Still, I was bent, and my laughter, as the poet said, was nowhere to be found. Then said my friend Daniel, brave even among lions, it's not the weight you carry, but how you carry it. Books, bricks, grief, it's all in the way you embrace it, balance it, carry it. When you cannot and would not put it down, so I went practicing. Have you noticed? Have you heard the laughter that comes now and again out of my startled mouth? How I linger to admire the things of this world that are kind, maybe also troubled. Roses in the wind, the sea geese on the steep waves, a love to which there is no reply. That time I thought I could not go any closer to grief without dying. I went closer and I did not die. So I'd like to invite you to settle into a meditative state. Check in with your posture. Notice if there are any distractions there, and if so, notice them, but get comfortable with them. And I invite you to sit with whatever is arising, and to meet it on its own terms, without self-judgment. And what that means is whatever is there is there. We don't need to judge ourselves about it. And do it with an open heart. And we'll begin. Notice where your attention is. So the subject for today's talk is still right effort. And in the description, I said daily. So I want to talk about, like, among other things, like how this practice is not something we do once. It's not something we, look at once in a while, but it's really important that it's an important part of our practice. And it's something we can do every day. Now, in the past, Tracy and Joy both have given wonderful talks about right energy and right effort, rather, and where that goes. It's aimed primarily at the 5 hindrances and the 7 wholesome states, or the 7 factors of awakening. But what it's really addressing in the long run is the 4 noble truths. We all know that Buddhism has tons of lists. Let me go over those briefly. The 4 noble truths is that there is suffering and the truth of suffering. We'll talk about the truth in a bit. The causes of suffering. That suffering can be ended or addressed. And then the Eightfold Path is the way to end suffering, the Dharma. The hindrances are sensory desire, ill will or resistance, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, and lack of conviction. And the wholesome states, or the factors of awakening, are mindfulness, energy, investigation of the Dharma, joy, tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. And of those, I think equanimity figures in most here. And the question arises, like, what are the hindrances hindering? They're not hindering our ability to sit there, but they're really kind of opposing the wholesome states of awakening. And that's why it's important that we address them. And how do we do that? That's where Vipassana meditation becomes very important. The act of sitting with what's arising, even when it's difficult, is extremely important. If when we're sitting and something comes up that we don't want to look at, we just turn away from it all the time, we never develop that equanimity. Equanimity is our ability to not be moved from where we want to be and where we need to be by, the vicissitudes of life. And that doesn't just happen automatically because we say the word equanimity. It's something we need to develop. And we become more equanimous by sitting with the little things that come up every day that may be hard to see. One of my teachers before used to say, never waste a good headache. Just the physical pain that arose. And it's, not a huge thing, but if we practice sitting with those small things, we build up our ability to sit with difficult things. And one of the things that happens as we begin doing that, as we sit with the difficult and get to know it, is that we get interested in it. And that interest generates energy to put the effort into it in the long run. So we have this kind of loop that is really important. When we're sitting with the difficult and we're doing it successfully and finding out, we're learning, and what we're learning isn't, like words on a paper or, anything like that. We're learning about us. We're learning to be our true selves. This is, and our true self isn't, oh, I'm suffering. Our true self is, this is me when I'm suffering. And this is me when I see that I can control that I can end that suffering. And that is the point where equanimity is. Equanimity lives in that place between the pain and the suffering. It's important that we see the difference between pain and suffering. Pain is just a reality of life. There will be pain. There's no doubt about that. The suffering, though, is optional. This is where we go to the Four Noble Truths. The suffering is optional. And it's optional because we can address it. And in order to address it effectively, we need to be able to sit with what arises and get to know it. And once we know it, we can let go of it, or we can have it let go of us more accurately. Now, when we talk about the hindrances, they're, again, sensory desire, ill will or resistance, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, and a lack of conviction. They're not failings. We're sitting, everyone has them. They're all there for all of us. What we need to do is to learn about them in order to be free of them, so that we can enter those more wholesome states of awakening. And again, equanimity is right in there. So I'd like us to sit again for just another few minutes. Settle in, and again, if something is arising, and stuff arises as a result of predetermination. So what we think about, what we read about, what we look at, usually arises in our awareness. If there's stuff that's difficult that's going on inside, it's probably going to come up. And if it's something that's really difficult, it may not be really easy to sit with right now. That's why it's important to sit with the small stuff. That's why it's called practice. We're not just practicing sitting on the cushion. We're practicing for life. This is what we need to bring off the cushion and into our lives. So let's sit again for a little bit. See what arises. At time, I thought I could not go any closer to grief without dying. I went closer and I did not die. I invite you to go closer.